Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Living a You-Filled Life podcast. This is episode number 10, and this is Fola. You've probably been listening for a little bit, hopefully. If not, welcome to the podcast. I have with me today my lover and my friend and my partner in crime, David.
You
David
haven't committed
Cozier.
any crimes yet, but will eventually, so stay tuned.
Yes, that's very true. Maybe we have committed a little bit of a crime, depending on where you are, but we were smoking up a little tonight.
It's not a crime in Canada anymore.
In our country, it is A-okay, just like eating a tub of cotton candy or whatever it might be. Anyway. So, yeah, we thought it might be a fun little experiment to come on here and have a conversation about conscious cannabis use. I would by no means identify myself as a pothead, just so everybody knows that.
Really?
I'm not an expert in this field of any of, but why? What do you mean, really?
I'm just joking.
I know, I'm just bugging you. What about you, David? Would you identify yourself as a pothead?
Would I call myself a pothead?
Yeah, is that the politically correct term to use nowadays, or what?
Politically correct is actually reinforcing a stereotype of stoners, if that's what you mean.
Okay.
So usually that's the stigma I was just kind of trying to be faded off, right? So it's like working diligently to get rid of the stigma behind cannabis use, and that's a good thing. So, as you say, conscious cannabis use is something worth paying attention towards because there's so much practical value cannabis can actually add to your life if you consciously use it.
What would you think those are?
Well, the benefits would be well, everybody reports things differently, right? So, I mean, increased creativity could be one. If that's your goal, if you're engaged in something artistic, like writing or the creative arts, you would want to have as much access to creativity as you can. So, if you find the right strain of cannabis that seems to amplify your creativity, I mean, why not take it?
As long as it's legal where you are.
Yeah, well,
we are not promoting illegal activities. The Living a You-Filled podcast does not promote illegal activities. But yeah, okay. I can see what you're saying there, and I think that's something that a lot of people have turned to over the years, I mean, whether it's alcohol or like absinthe in the good old days, acid, mushrooms, ayahuasca, opioids or whatever. People are turning to different substances, medicines in order to like tap into that part of themselves, right? Into that creativity and all that. And I think what it comes down to is that with cannabis in particular, it's like tapping into a relaxed state majority of the time and putting yourself in a different like realm almost to like access information, access downloads or insights, right? Whatever that might be. I think a lot of the times too, it's not just about creating externally and having things that you can bring into your reality, like, if it's a piece of work like writing or something that you're wanting to create, but also about that like deeper inner work that can happen.
Yeah, I think of cannabis as a possible lubricant for your inner work. Your inner work is feeling kind of dried up lately. I mean, cannabis could be exactly what you're looking for, is to juice things up again, right? So, yeah, think of cannabis as a lubricant to enhance creativity, enhance productivity. If you find certain like high energy strains, like sativas, would offer you that. So, I mean, there's if there's different goals you have, I mean, there might be a cannabis solution for each one of them if you really do your research and experiment a little bit, become a full pothead, I guess, or at least a casual one that seems to know what they're doing.
Well, but I think before you can tell people to use cannabis to promote these states of like mind. I think it's important that people have something in place to see, how do I process or work through things that might come up, because this is kind of where I come in with my views on like the spiritual emergence, spiritual emergency, psychosis spectrum. The fact that there's a lot of people who think that just by taking something like a plant medicine or whatever, it's going to like quote unquote fix their problems. But it's like sometimes in order for things to like be processed, you have to like really get into that like nitty gritty part of it, right? And if you don't have the tools in place in your life to like work through things, like the right support system, or different techniques, like whether it's like journaling, meditation, even just anxiety relieving techniques like going for a walk, right? If people don't have that stuff in place first, then there could be more of those, like that's where the issues could come up, right? That's why, to me, like when we talk conscious cannabis use, it's about really looking at all those pieces, not just like the taking of like the plant, but also understanding, what am I doing around this? What's the intention around it? And then how do I provide like the whole like environment, not necessarily just physical environment, but I don't know what word I want to use with that. Help me. But something to help promote that like path in the more conscious direction, right? Intended with like your will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, education should be important. Like, you identify a need and try to fulfill it as well as you can. And like the conscious part of it, like you're not just smoking it to have fun recreation, you're smoking it to better your inner self by helping you achieve whatever goals you have in mind, whether it's relaxation, creativity, energy. So definitely, I mean, I don't quite have a framework that supports that right now. I don't think. Like at least one that's informative and it's non-judgmental and it just says it like it is. One that doesn't like marginalize cannabis use because it's such a popular drug, and there's a good reason for that because I think it's very beneficial. So you see the old ways are still lingering around in the air, and people still have old ways of thinking about cannabis use, but as it gets more and more legal, um, it becomes more obvious that it's not like a bad drug. It's actually a beneficial plant. It's plant medicine. So I mean, why not take advantage of something that God Himself and nature has created, which we have cannabis receptors for? I mean, that's a very odd thing that we have cannabis receptors. So I feel this plant was like basically or should live in symbiosis with us, kind of like there's a reason why that plant exists on this planet. Maybe it is just for the purpose of bringing us closer to the divine and understanding ourselves better. So I think this is like a very assistive plant, and there's so many uses for it. It's just incredible the many things you can do with hemp and so on. And it's like, why demonize such a beneficial plant? What is the whole reason behind it? And it's possible there's fear-based mechanisms involved that we still haven't overcome collectively. It's like, why are we so afraid to admit how beneficial it is? But you can see in the state things are changing, and there's like 11 states that are fully legalized right now. 33 that's only legalized for medicinal use.
Sorry, how many?
There's 33 in America, right? Yeah. Sorry, inside joke there, but it's number 33. Yeah, so.
Well, I think a lot of the reason for that like fear, or whether it's because the criminalization, is because it causes shifts in people, right? I mean, really, if you think about it, a lot of the things that cause all those like big existential sort of shifts have been bad or criminalized, and we're told how it's not good and that there's all these like horrible things about it, right? And I think like part of me also feels that's actually part of life, for us to face fears, right, that have been like programmed in us. So all that stuff's being programmed continually, and then are we willing to step through to obtain something else, right? So that's just my thoughts. Whether it's like the government, whoever, who knows, right? I think there are some things like only some people are willing to really explore into that, and others not so much. But
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's still largely ignoring like the research of it. Like we haven't fully researched
no,
all the possible benefits. I mean, like we know only a bit of them, and already they're super beneficial. I mean, they've weaponized cannabis already in the states to create medicine for like CBD-based medicine for treating like epilepsy. I think over there they
mm-hmm.
have GW Pharma is one of the stocks I follow, and that's how they base the business model, not model. I guess just one product. They base it on that, so they could put a drug identification number, and it would be covered by insurance and so on.
Mm.
So, I mean, already a big company has legitimized the value of cannabis and what it brings to the table. And now they're going to have a multi-billion-dollar industry that's just going to open right up, and it's going to really take away the stigma of weed. It'd be like opening the floodgates and clearing things out. Because the more people interact with weed, I find in various ways, the more accustomed they get to it, the more they realize there's nothing bad about it at all. And that fear-based mechanism gets resolved, right? And
So
they can finally get to the next point in their evolution and get past that fear-based mechanism, which feels a little bit like slavery or enslavement because it restricts thinking, right? So yeah, cannabis definitely has that value, that potential to overcome like whatever your fears are, like whatever your goals are. It's almost like a genie granting wishes, but you'd have to consciously work with it. I
well,
mean,
yeah,
just
you have to intend. The genie doesn't do really
absolutely, yeah.
anything.
You have to intend, right? I mean, it's not like you're taking a leap. I mean, you have to actually intend to. Oh, I don't know what I just said there, but yeah, the intention is very important to keep in mind the whole time.
So tell me like a bit, because I know you've read some like Terence Mckenna,
Mm,
and we were kind of having a conversation earlier today about different theories, because that's something that is on my mind lately, is just hearing some people's stories and kind of questioning like, okay, what's the connection between, say, other beings, otherworldly beings, and cannabis use, right? But even then, I know we talked about, I believe it's Terence McKenna has talked about, say, with mushrooms, psilocybin, them being little like creatures or beings, aliens from like other planets or whatever the case might be. Like, what's the story there? Any thoughts that you might have to share with us on Terence McKenna and
and
all
aliens?
that? Yeah, what didn't you find out something? Aliens. Okay, yeah, let's just
Didn't you
call it
say aliens? I
aliens.
thought you said
I thought
that.
I said otherworldly
I
beings,
guess
but
that
that's pretty
figures in
much what
there.
aliens is, what
Sure,
I'm
they come
talking
from out of
to.
words. Wow, that's a tough one. Right? I mean, I'm not quite sure what the question or suggestion would be, but like, are you suggesting that like cannabis facilitates communication? I mean, like, Terence McKenna believes that drugs were porters to higher states of consciousness. So, I mean, who's to say that there's maybe beings residing on those higher planes of consciousness that want to interact but can't because we're not tuned into the same frequency they are, right? Just like having a radio in the car. They're not quite tuned. It's just gibberish, it's gargles, it's whatever. And maybe if you tune up like one extra dial, maybe our interaction with these entities could be of extreme value to a civilization as a whole. Or just that big jump in consciousness is going to really change things, and the typical old ways of doing things may become just that old, dead. And this new world will come from these ashes, right? New ways of thinking, new ways of existing, I suppose. It's very difficult to find solutions for everything right at the moment, but I think deep in everybody's heart, this is what we want. We want a better planet. And maybe that's what we need is higher frequencies to be able to see from a higher perspective on what the solutions might be. So Terence McKenna definitely was a proponent of using plant medicine to get that higher state of awareness to become a better human being. By transforming yourself, you transform the world around you. So it's very powerful when you think about the potential all these medicines bring.
Well, and I think another part of that, which connecting with some people in the area who like utilize like integration work that I think is really important. Because sure, if you have all these experiences based on whatever you've taken, and you come back into your like normal reality, and then you don't have any way to integrate what the hell you just experienced or learned, then it's useless. That's my belief. And I think that's why you go, you could go to like a rave or a big party, and there'll be a bunch of people taking things and having these like mind blowing sort of experiences with their sensory like perception. And sometimes too, obviously having like deeper understandings. But I know for me, like if I don't really get into what it is exactly that those insights are, right? Whether you've taken like a medicine or plant, whatever, or not, because you can obtain a lot of these states with like breath work, meditation, and all these other sort of altered or other like spiritual practices. But it's like if you don't really dive into it more by journaling or writing things out and trying to like connect the dots, I think it's pointless, because you could have that insight like come into your mind, poof, and then it's just gone, right? And it's like the next day the person wakes up and they don't even recall any of the things that happened, or they have something that happens that's so like profound they have no way to like process really what happened. And that's why I think like the integration work is really important, like bringing it all together, right? And allowing it to then be integrated into who you are and what you do and what makes you you, right? So that you can continue to live that life that you want, or maybe take the next steps forward in whatever path that might be. So I think that's also important, not just taking or using some cannabis, like, or whatever it might be that someone's desiring to do, or even, I guess maybe that's where we come into that whole phrase of like spiritual bypassing, right? Where people will take part in like spiritual events or activities, and they're, going around with their friends and like doing the meditation, and, it becomes kind of like an ego trip more so. And then they're also not having the ability to integrate the things that you would imagine would come out of doing any of those spiritual practices, right? Because of it's almost like the focus is on something completely different than the inner work. It's really just about what the ego is wanting to be perceived as.
There's a lot of deep things in what you said there to consider for sure.
Yeah, you look like you're gonna fall asleep.
Well, there's so many different things you said. Very hard to figure out what to address.
Well, I could ask you another question, because you didn't really actually answer the question.
Which
Are
question?
Aliens real, David? Are they?
You asked me that question if they're real. Well, if you look at any kind of, well, what is an alien exactly? It's something that's foreign to a planet. So, I mean, let's say there's some weird kind of worm that lives on Mars. So that's basically an alien, right? So, yeah, sure, it definitely exists.
Well, what about then the connection between cannabis use in that? What is your theory about that besides?
I don't know, man. I mean, like, let's say, it's so difficult. It's like, I mean, we don't know what frequency the aliens are on to begin. So the way you would have to establish all that is to figure out how to access that frequency on a consistent basis whenever you want. So it'd be like always being able to phone somebody, and you always get them on the other side and can have a conversation. So it's that consistency of communication that could enable conversation with aliens. And since you're asking if they're real or not, I mean, I'm sure they are, and I would imagine there has to be other dimensions that are beyond our own. So it's more like other frequencies where life can exist upon, might also exist on top of our own reality, like stacks up, like a spectrum of like who knows how many dimensions there are, or other life forms on top of our own. Of course, it's all pure speculation, right? But we don't know if there really are aliens out there, and this is all just a big stimulated universe or matrix, if you will. So since we have no way of knowing, I'm not sure. There's no yes or no for that question about communicating with aliens. I mean, if you think you are, maybe you are. who knows if that's not you actually making up those answers, right? So there's no real scientific way of validating whether they are actual aliens because we don't really see proof of them in ways that would be like undeniably, well, I guess there are physical evidence of aliens having existed or came to visit us. So it's very hard to say. Nobody really knows. So it's a big question mark. But yeah,
I think the main thing is in relation to the cannabis use, because I do believe that cannabis causes shifts in people's perceptions of reality, their awareness, whether you want to call it, accessing different dimensions or not. I mean, if you talk to a lot of people who are like often in like really intense altered states, I think they would say that it's like reaching a different dimension, right? Or that they're having that like the veil pulled back or whatever, right? And I know in like the experience that I had once with cannabis, it was very much like that, you know? And that's honestly how I would describe it if someone asked me. It's like, well, what I was experiencing was like a complete alteration of the reality that I knew and seeing things that were you know, in the room as like different and experiencing the sounds differently and like everything was just very like a different level than what I was used to, right? And I believe it was because of that use of cannabis. So to me, it totally is going to be able to like rip away the veil of whatever might be going on. And I do, that's why I guess I'm kind of a proponent of how do we support people who are going to be using cannabis and having these experiences. And instead of them being hospitalized or at least taken to hospital, held there for like a day and then told, hey, stop using cannabis.
huh.
You know, you're psychotic because of the cannabis.
Mm.
But it's like it's like this whole other world. It's not really a psychosis in a way. Like they can, you know, like clearly there's some things that need to happen because they're not fully functioning all the time. And yeah, when they do stop using, then it kind of starts clearing. They become more like grounded into this reality again that we're the most familiar with, right? But yeah, I think that's definitely an important thing to throw in there. Otherwise, we're just gonna have a bunch of people wandering around talking to aliens. Is that maybe what the
That's the
accessing?
scary, that's the scary outcome is like, do you turn into a full-on crazy person? And then you gotta really start thinking about, well, what's crazy? Is it crazy to believe in aliens? A lot of people are like, no, for or against, it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's very fair. Which side you're on, it doesn't really matter. So, I mean, again, these are deep, deep questions. And
We
yeah,
got to
I mean,
get to the.
integration is so important in all this. Like, we can't really say this is true. I mean, it's true to what you're feeling right now, so who knows, right? So, but anyways, like I suppose as far as integration goes, you want to like work on developing a deeper sense of self-awareness and an ability to be objective about yourself, and that creates a lot of like strength and character. Like when you can be able to, manage yourself and know that, I'm feeling these crazy things, but that's okay. I can handle it.
Hmm.
I'm a big boy now, right? My
Or
mommy
girl.
moves out whenever. It's all about being an adult and being mature and taking responsibility for your own emotions and thoughts and experiences. And I think this is what we're after, is like trying to provide that structure which enables you to have these greater defenses against, psychic defenses, whatever you want to call it, energetic defenses against whatever might be in your path or whatever might be confusing you. And they say, hey, I kind of recognize what this is. This thing is what they talked about in the support group, whatever it is that, they got the information from. So it's important to provide that framework for integration for sure.
Hmm.
Otherwise, like, you don't have that framework, you're just wandering in a circle lost, and
Yeah.
maybe you have an epiphany here and there, but if they get forgotten about and you just back to normal, well, there's no real value to that experience other than maybe that it happened. But if you don't work with that and show gratitude, and yeah, you're not going to get too far if you don't do cannabis consciously. And proper integration definitely is important part of that experiment, I suppose, to better yourself. So if you're serious about bettering yourself and willing to use it consciously, then yeah, integration is very valuable as far as that goes, as far as support goes. So
And discipline too, because I think that's where we
discipline, yeah,
were talking. Terence McKenna, what he uses
yeah.
like he would said
Oh,
to he used like 14 to 16 times
folks,
a
yeah,
day,
smokes
but
that much, man.
like the ideal use, he said if he had enough
Yeah,
discipline or willpower to do it, would be like once a week in a very strict sort of maintained environment, where it would allow for that deeper introspection. So that's one thing I think, not like I'm all about harm reduction. And so about where do you need to go, like where is it you want to go, where are you now, and how do you get there using the tools and techniques and methods that are going to be the most use for you in a way that promotes that discipline and that self-control, that willpower. Because the more that we can build our willpower, and I'm also learning this still in a lot of areas of my life, but it's like the more we build that willpower, then the more our intentions will be successful because we can direct our energy towards whatever it is that we need to work on, right? Or whatever things we need to accomplish. Whether it's an outward action, creating some type of project, or it's that inner like shifting that needs to happen. So, yeah. But yeah, it's great that you come on and chat with me, David.
yeah, you didn't have to pay me much either.
No, I didn't. So that's wonderful.
There's other things that I might get
Oh
paid for.
my gosh. Anyway, I
Anyway,
appreciate you guys joining in on the conversation. Um, unless you have anything else to add, David,
ah,
we're gonna end this lovely podcast. Anything else?
well, it's a pleasure to be able to do this for the first time with you, Paul, and I enjoy our conversations when we get deep about things. And so I wish I was the first guest on the podcast, but I'm a shy guy, so whatever.
You'll have plenty more, I'm sure.
Oh, that's great.
So thanks so much, and you guys take care, and we'll catch you on the next episode.